how successful you are in your main market, opening up a new market is always going to be a little bit different.
If you want to make this into a business, into a company, you got to get out of this day to day.
So what are the three biggest things that you see, like from a leverage perspective, that we're doing with clients to help them add 197,000 that we're adding per year to clients' businesses on average?
So yeah, some support on your team I think is great. So being able to utilize that along with the community is great. But one, it's just going to be...
All right, today we got Braden here, who is one of our coaches at Level Up. And Braden's helped 6 people hit their first $100,000 a month. And he's going to kind of break down what's working right now and what's worked in the past. It's like some of the biggest levers that he's seen for people to go from, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, all the way up to $100,000 a month consistently. So Braden, dude, good to have you here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So I guess let's start, before we get really deep into the nitty gritty of you growing and helping scale our clients' companies. What is your background and how did you kind of get into this whole wholesaling space?
Cool. Yeah. So I started off in the SaaS realm after college. Went to University of Iowa after I moved to Arizona. Was working in the SaaS realm for a couple of years and just kind of felt that, hey, I need to be an entrepreneur. I need to be able to find a way to make my own path and not be capped by ceilings everywhere. So that's how I fell into real estate. Originally was going to go be a realtor, get my license. Luckily, I just started applying everywhere and found a job as an operations manager for a wholesale company. So I kind of fell into it and immediately started loving it. So I was the operations manager for that company. We did $1.2 million that year, and then we wanted to open up a new market. So we started doing some market research in the Southeast, ended up picking Chattanooga. So moved out here, stopped seeing eye to eye with the vision of the company, and that's when I joined the Level Up program. And I've been coach with you now for a little over 2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Definitely opening it. That's how you moved to Chattanooga. But talk to me a little bit about when you went to open up that new market. What were some of the challenges you guys faced?
Yeah, I mean, no matter how successful you are in your main market, opening up a new market it's always going to be a little bit different. We were coming from Arizona where super hard to get a contract, but very easy to sell. And then we were coming to a smaller market where, yes, it was a lot easier to get a contract, but it was a lot harder to sell because we didn't have those connections. And it was also working with, different type of buyers where their expectations were different. Where Arizona, they're paying 85% of value. Where here in Tennessee, they were still looking for 60%, crazy numbers. So even virtually for some people, what I'm seeing is just having the right players there for boots on the ground, getting the photos. If you do have to go get a contract, having boots on the ground is an essential piece.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty important point. I actually just saw a short Robert Winsley had made. He was basically talking, I don't know if you saw it or not, but he basically said that changing markets, so the same team, same training, same process, same people, and then if they just look at changing a market, most of the time what happens is that business will just double their revenue without doing anything different in a year. So changing markets is a super high leverage point. And, we witnessed the same thing. What do you feel like you learned from opening up a new market, going from Arizona to Chattanooga? Was there anything you would do differently if you could go over and kind of facilitate it again and also helping clients do it now? What did you learn from that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel when a lot of people, at least when you're smaller, when you're looking for a new market, they always tend to lean towards smaller markets because they think it's going to be easier. And it may be, but, and when we were looking, we were kind of afraid of, the competition. We were looking at Atlanta and we're like, all right, all the big dogs are in Atlanta, so maybe we don't go there. And we did just a very short visit and kind of were overwhelmed by just how big it is, how much we didn't really know. Where if I were to go back, I wouldn't stray away from those big markets. I'm fine with competition, and then it's just you against the other people. And that's where, your sales team and how good they are at building rapport, comes into play. And if you're good at that, you won't struggle in a big market, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree because it's kind of like you said, it's the people in Chattanooga, they're buying so much deeper. So it's harder to move a deal, and your spreads are probably smaller too because the price point's a lot smaller. So, I think it always pays to do bigger deals, and totally. you just got to figure out how to get better at it. So
I'd rather do one deal of 50 than do 10 deals of 5K.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, every day of the week because volume's what takes all the time. Cool. So when you look at someone coming into Level Up that you're working with, let's say they're doing 20, 30, maybe $40,000 a month consistently. How do you kind of break down their business to figure out what things they need to do in order to grow?
Yeah. So it depends on the person, right? It's never just a cut and dry system, which is why I really like Level Up, just because we do kind of have that hands-on training with people. Because everyone's coming in with different needs. Some of them need systems. They don't have automations. They don't have the right processes in place. Some people need people, and some people, their numbers are making sense, and it's just putting more fuel to the fire. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis on what they need, honestly.
So let's break it down. Which one do you want to start with first?
So usually when people come in, and obviously I've been with Level Up for 2 years now. I've seen under the hoods of 100 operations and gotten the 6 people to 100K. And usually it's like 3 main things that I see people that they struggle with. And in no particular order, it's systems, KPIs, and accountability. So kind of that first piece, the systems, it's like, do they have the right CRM? Do they have the follow-up process dialed in? The drip campaigns, the reporting capabilities. Are the calls recorded in the system so that you can kind of go back and review them? I've seen some CRMs where, the communication is completely separate. So can you text out of there? Like, how easy is it for your team to use?
Yeah. I think like we just recently took on a few partners who are like working with like really hand in hand, me, Braden, and one of our other coaches. And the CRM, I didn't realize how important that was until we started like trying to diagnose problems. But we would just like be like, okay, well, like you got this many leads, you spent this much money, like, there's a gap somewhere. So like, how do we go find like where are the good leads in your system? Like, where are the ones you're negotiating with? And then like when the people you're working with like can't tell you, they're like, they're kind of here, they're kind of there, they're kind of everywhere. It's like, okay, so if I'm working for your company, like how am I gonna plug in to know like how to go get a deal? And it's like it's
especially once you've been in this game for 3, 4, 5 years, you have a lot of leads in your system, right? And if they're not categorized right, so your team knows like, all right, yes, you may have that employee that's been with you for 2 years that understands what to do, but if you bring on somebody new, they're not going to have any idea what's going on and what to prioritize to follow up with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay, so you said the first thing was systems, and then you said the next thing was KPIs, and then accountability. What's KPIs?
Talent. Yeah. Well, I guess accountability, what I meant by that is more so like talent and getting the most out of them. But as far as KPIs, knowing your numbers, a lot of people that come to us too, I always ask on our onboarding calls, like, hey, what do you think your problem is? And usually what they tell me is something kind of different than what I'm seeing with their numbers.
Okay.
So really understanding those numbers so that you can make educated decisions and you're not just like, oh, I think this is an issue, let's go fix it. Because if it's not an issue, now you're just complicating the process and you're not working off of the theory of constraints and getting that one thing done that's going to move your business forward quicker.
So what kind of, do you ever see any like common things that people think are the problems, but then it's something different? Like what do you normally see?
Yeah, a lot of people, it's always, I need more leads. I don't have enough leads in my system. I just need to spend more money and get more leads. But when I look at it and see how those numbers map out, like what the percentage is for conversions, it's like, no, your conversions are way off. Like I could tell your follow-up's bad without even like looking at your system. I could tell your system's broken by just looking at your KPI numbers right here. So it's not always, hey, let's go spend a bunch more money. Sometimes it's, hey, let's optimize what we do have before we go back to the top and put more money in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think like even on the optimization point, I was like talking to someone last night about it, and just like someone can implement, like, let's just say the sales process that we teach to like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 and get like pretty below average results. But then if you can get it to a 9 or a 10 out of 10, like the execution and implementation, then you get like way above average results, like way outsized returns. What do you feel like is and this might go to the accountability piece, but like, how do you feel like getting people to implement something all the way through? Like what kind of role do you play?
Yeah, like in the day-to-day aspect.
Yeah, just like helping someone like implement it.
But yeah, totally. So obviously on that initial onboarding call, we'll do an hour deep dive on their business and kind of game plan of, hey, this is your issues, like this is what we're going to do. And then it's breaking it out into bite-sized chunks, because a lot of times making some of these changes might seem daunting. But again, it's working off that theory of constraints of, hey, what's the biggest lever that's going to be able to move our business forward quickest without having to use the most resources. So it really is just taking piece by piece, because, it's never going to be a perfect operation. Something's always going to be broke. So it's always just optimizing. Something else is going to break. Then we optimize there. Something else is going to break. Like, that's just how businesses operate, and that's kind of how we operate here too. So let's fix that one thing. Something else is going to break. Then we'll talk about that and figure that out together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you go through this and you're teaching someone like how to look at that and get comfortable with it. I know I used to struggle with, man, like if I get more leads, or if I get, hire more lead managers to get more appointments, like then like I'm not going to be as efficient on those appointments because I'll have too many of them or whatever. How do you think about that situation?
And it's just, what's the highest revenue driving activity? If you're spending time trying to fix something that's not making you money, then you're just kind of wasting your time. Like, yes, you could do that, but I would do that, after hours, after all the high level tasks are done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of the prioritization of, what tasks should I do first, and doing those high levels first.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like looking at $1 per hour, like what's the outcome this will actually make, and then kind of picking from there. Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay. Now, you said the accountability piece was the third part. So like, obviously, this is just like the foundational pieces to getting someone's like set up the right way. But like, how do you see accountability for this third part?
Yeah, it's kind of tandem, accountability and talent. So I'm more so on the people side. So one is tracking your numbers day in and day out, making sure the team's doing what they're supposed to be doing, not even that, understanding why they're doing what they're doing. Making sure your numbers track to their daily numbers, and that their daily numbers backtrack to the company goals, which ultimately equals money for everybody in the business, right? So it's that piece, the KPIs, daily team meetings, making sure you're holding them accountable. You're doing trainings on those calls to make sure they're performing and also improving over time. And then also just having those A players. A lot of people that do come in, like, hey, I've had this employee for 2 years. They've been doing fine for me. I don't really want to let them go. But when we look at the numbers, it's just like, listen to the calls, it's just like, they're not really performing where they should. And a lot of people are afraid to kind of go out and hire and bring on that A player because they don't think they're ready for it. But ultimately, when you do bring that A player, it's just going to bring your business forward quicker.
Yeah. So do you have like an example of that, like where you've dealt with that with a client and like they've found someone better and it just kind of immediately like released a bottleneck for them?
There's been a few people, and I feel like one of the big levers that a lot of people that I have been working with to kind of make a jump from, kind of a smaller business getting a deal or two a month to getting, 2 to 3 months. A lot of them, the main person they brought on was like a lead manager. A lot of them were like, I could handle this. Like, I'm good. I just need to get more leads. Right. But they went out, we gave them the process on how to hire, how to interview, bring somebody on. And once they brought somebody on, it was pretty instant results. They tripled the appointments they were going on in the week. They were getting contracts quicker than ever. So that's kind of a big lever that I've seen with quite a few people I've worked with recently is, bringing on that lead manager position, and not even just a lead manager, someone that's really good at that role to help kind of bring the business forward.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a tough role to give up, especially when you feel like, because when you hire a lead manager, usually there's like, you're kind of like, oh, like I could just like call these people and like work a little harder, but then you have deals falling through on the back end for the dispo side, or you're just taking the lowest, the first offer you get. So you're maybe leaving like 5, 6, 7K on the table for each deal you dispo. So like it is a pretty like intimidating hire, but when all you have to do is just go on appointments and you don't have to like do is all the follow-up, and you're kind of like relieved of that duty. I mean, not that you're going to not do follow-up, right? Like you still should be like following the good leads and stuff in the system if you really like want to make it work. But you can go from 2 or 3 appointments a week to 10 very quickly, like just by hiring one person.
I think you mentioned a really good point on, people are afraid to kind of give up roles in their company. For a lot of people, this is their baby. They built this from the ground up. No one's gonna be able to do it better than they can. That's what a lot of people struggle with, is delegation. But as you mentioned, once you start delegating that stuff, again, focus on the highest revenue driving tasks, which, as a solopreneur is usually going to be that sales role next. So giving those offers, getting contracts, and giving the follow up to somebody else. So for a lot of people, it's getting comfortable with that delegation too. Yeah.
What's one of the things that you think will make people more comfortable with delegation?
Ultimately, it's just time and practice. it takes a minute to become a leader. And, I've learned that. I've been a failed leader before in other companies where it just didn't work out, and I can reflect on that and be like, all right, I've come a long way. And it's just understanding that, yes, someone might not be able to do it up to your quality, but if they can do it up to 80%, that frees you up to go work on the higher level things, which is ultimately the goal. And, if you want to make this into a business, into a company, you got to get out of this day to day, because right now it's just a job for people who are doing every single suit.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's becoming a leader is like a never ending challenge. And so when you were in past companies in like leadership roles, like what do you feel like you messed up on, and like how did you basically go about like fixing it? And like obviously like from I've known you for a while, you have a very reflective, like introspective, like personality. So like, I don't have to be like, and this is just like our relationship too. It's like, I don't have to be like, Braden, do this better. It's like, I'll be like, hey, I see this as like an opportunity. You're like, yeah, I've been thinking about that for a couple of weeks, glad you brought that up. So it's like, how did you go about figuring out what you messed up on and how you could improve it just kind of on your own? Like because that's how entrepreneurship works at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And my past stuff was because I didn't delegate. If people want to kind of, feel empowered in their role. They want that chance for opportunity. Where in the past, I was just doing all the work because I knew it'd be done quickly. I would be the one, handling client communications. Like I would go make that difficult call. But a lot of people, especially employees that, you want on your team, they want that challenge. They want the growth. They want the growth to be able to become more, to learn more. And if you're just doing all that work for them, it kind of stifles them. And then eventually they're just going to get comfortable with, okay, this person's going to do it, so I don't have to do it. I'm just going to sit here and kind of hang out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like being able to push other people to do things that are a little bit out of their comfort zone.
Exactly.
And that'll help them grow and kind of become to a new level. So like, what's your point on this? Because anytime you do something out of your comfort zone, it's not always guaranteed that whoever, let's say like for me, if I'm out of my comfort zone, it's not guaranteed that I'm going to do it right or perfectly the first try. So like, how do you like let people fail, but not like fail in a way that it's going to like derail the company?
Yeah. And it's just understanding the risk of what the failure could implicate, and, helping them understand, what we're trying to do here. Because failure is great. That's kind of when I've learned the most. It's not those big, wholesale contracts that would close. Like I didn't learn a lot from those. Usually you just start celebrating, you're moving on to the next. It's those ones that fall out of contract that are like, dang, I should have gotten that. We should have done this better. So ultimately, you have to let people fail and get comfortable failing, because that's when you're going to have the most growth, is when you're out of your comfort zone and you are making those failure decisions, unfortunately.
Yeah. Do you think everyone who's on, and this comes back to like who's on your team, like if you're, have a wholesale company and you're running it and you let someone fail, how do you know if that person, if it's like a failure that was productive or not productive? Because I think that's like a point that people don't talk about. It's like, yeah, let your team fail, but like, what happens if they just keep failing? Like when's too much?
I was gonna say that's kind of when it was a failure, is when you're getting the failure over and over and over on the same things, because everything, that failure has to be a learning lesson. So once you do fail, sitting down, talking with your team, hey, this is what we could have done better. Maybe you have that call recorded, pull up that call recording, listen to it as a team, have everybody chime in. What did we miss out on this? Because ultimately, we want to fail, but if you're doing failure over and over, it doesn't make sense, and it's just not going to work out. So we have to improve with our failures. So that's the big thing, is reflecting on those failures, doing the call recordings, look at the numbers, whatever you have to do to reflect on that failure, to be able to go teach the team and ultimately get better together.
Yeah. Have you seen anyone you've worked with that's like, or yourself, like, how did you go from being someone who could basically let someone fail, and then like, have you ever had to like teach someone how to like fail and learn and like grow, or is that just something you feel like is natural, like for people to have on the team?
Yeah. I mean, I don't ever want to cue somebody up for a failure of a situation, right? And it kind of just comes into the delegation. It's like, once you get a little bit more comfortable with delegating those roles and those tasks, like failure is going to happen within it. So that's when that training piece comes in. But yeah, I wouldn't ever say, hey, go do this. I know you're going to fail. It's here's the tools. I'm going to give you the tools to be successful. You may fail at it, which is totally fine, and we'll come back together and learn on this. But yeah, that's the big thing. I wouldn't just set somebody up for failure.
Oh man, that's funny. Okay. So when you like have been working with a lot of the clients recently, like, because I think on average right now it's like 198,000 or something like that, 197,000 that we're adding per year to clients' businesses on average. So what are the three biggest things that you see, like from a leverage perspective, that we're doing with clients to help them add that amount of revenue and income to their business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously having the CSM support on your team, I think is great. So being able to utilize that along with the community is great. But one, it's just going to be implementing the things we talk about. We're a third party perspective on your company. Sometimes when you're the owner, you're going to be making the kind of emotional decisions because, again, this is your baby. You built this from the ground up. You produce revenue with it. But, being a third party, we're going to come in with an unbiased kind of opinion on what your business should be doing. So whether you take that information and implement it is going to be up to you. But when you do implement it, I promise you, you're going to be able to see positive changes from it. So I think that's the big thing. One is just going to be implementing the things you talk about with your CSM reps on a timely manner. Two, again, it's just going to be focusing on those high revenue tasks, really prioritizing your tasks, your day. Hey, am I working on things that are going to drive revenue for this company, or am I just spending time working on things that, aren't going to do anything for the company? So really prioritizing your day. And again, three, bringing on those A players. You may not think you're ready for them, but I promise you, if you bring them on, not only are you going to be able to speed your business up, but they're going to hold you accountable too as a business owner to be better, which is ultimately what needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Anytime I've hired someone and I'm like a little bit nervous about bringing on, I'm like, damn, business is kind of a shitstorm right now. Don't know if I want this guy to see what we got going on. It's like it kind of kicks you in gear to be like, okay, well, we better like fix this because this person's not going to stay around for long if we don't, because they need to make money. And if they don't make money, then they're going to leave, and that's not good for me. So,
a lot of people get comfortable with being comfortable. They're like, okay, I'm fine where we're at. Like, we're doing this thing. Like, we're making money. Great. But if you do want to take this as next thing, obviously it's going to be more accountability and bring on that A player. Again, it's going to produce more for you, but it's also going to hold you accountable to getting stuff done.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, talk to me about this. So when you say like do what the CSM, your client success manager, obviously your coach, tells you to do basically on the implementation call, what are some of the common things that you see based on where people are at? So like, I guess, you take that question with however you want, but what are some of the common things you see? And like, what are the common solutions for those problems?
Yeah. One, tracking KPIs. A lot of people come to us not knowing their numbers, not having the proper systems to track their KPIs so that we can make decisions off that. Because again, you can come tell me what your problem is, but without seeing the numbers, I'm not going to fully believe it because I need to see the numbers to be able to, okay, this is right. Or maybe our issue is somewhere else. So being able to track your KPIs to know, hey, where are things falling apart? And also on top of that, knowing what our ROIs on the marketing channels that we are using. Is this profitable? Is it not? Do we take our money from this budget to go over here? Do we put more money into it? So really understanding your numbers and having them tracked in detail so that we can make, educated decisions on what we need to do to get your business to where you want to go. And then two is just going to be that accountability piece, having a team of performers. A lot of people, they bring on these people, they've been with them for 2 years, so they have that loyalty, but they're just underperforming. They're afraid to let them go. They're afraid to hold them accountable to get them better. But again, if we want to turn this into a company, not just a job, we're going to need those A players to take us there.
How do you take someone who's like underperforming and either like ramp them back up to KPI or like get them out of the company? Like, what's like the best thing you've seen to do that? Best way to do that?
Well, the kind of steps I like to take is one, systematize. Make sure our systems, our automations, everything's to 10. Like we're all good there, so that we're good. And then hopefully something else breaks within the chain. So then we'll go ahead and fix that. As far as figuring out if it's bringing on a hire, is it figuring something out with our process that's broken? And then from there, it's deciding what the owner wants. Some people, as the owners, they like to do acquisition. So it's like, all right, let's hire someone to come in and kind of handle the dispo and the LM stuff. Or, maybe they really like the dispo side. So let's bring on that acquisitions and LM to kind of plug in. So again, it's a case by case basis, and it's really finding out what the owner's, area of genius is and what they like to do in this business so that they can focus on that so that they're motivated day in and day out to do this.
Yeah. I think that is such a core piece. It's when you look at like team building and stuff, it's like knowing, this is at least how I see it, is knowing what strengths everyone has. And then like, how do we like make everyone on the team have like complementary strengths so that is like, there's no real blind spots because everyone has weaknesses. And I remember I was talking to Ryan Pineda about this actually. He was like, someone asked him like, what do you feel like your weakness is? And he was like, I don't even know. And I was like, huh. And we started talking. And I was like, I've never even thought about like what my weakness is because, at the end of the day, like, I don't really care what those things are because I know what I'm good at and I know like what things I need roughly around me. Like, I don't know, like, if I was going to say like, I wouldn't even be able to tell you like what my weakness is off the top of my head. I'd have to think for like 5 minutes to give you a good answer and I'd probably ramble on. But if you ask me my strengths is like being able to see trends in data, be able to analyze situations and like make very strategic decisions to like fit things together in a bigger picture. So it's like, if I know like that's what I'm good at, then it's like, okay, well, I just need people who can like come on board, execute strategy at a high level in the different pieces of the business. Then it's like, it's kind of straightforward on how to build and grow based on what you're good at. So it's like, when you see someone, how do you kind of like take them through to realize what they're good at? Is it something that people always naturally know? Is like, what does that conversation look like?
Yeah. And it's always just asking, like one of the first questions I ask, I'm like, where do you want to take this thing? Like, do you want a big company? Do you want to lean a company? Because, you can do whatever you want with this. You want a big company? Perfect. I'll help you make a big company out of this. You want a lean operation? Perfect. I can help you with that. And what I'm seeing with like a lot of my clients, a lot of them, they're the entrepreneurs, they're the gunslinger salespeople that just go out there and make stuff happen, right? So usually they're kind of that sales mindset where they're not great at the operations, which I think is a really good thing about Level Up. We do have sales content within our stuff, but we're really focused on the operations. Myself, I'm an operator, not the best at sales. I'm totally fine with it. I could talk to anybody when necessary, but I'm really good at operations, systems, process, KPIs. I love that stuff. So I think that's where we come into play because we were really good with their systems. And, with your system, depending where you want to go, I'm going to do everything in my power to fix everything first before saying, hey, we need to put more money into this. You're not going to come in here. I'm not going to, say, hey, go buy this, go buy this, go buy this, like some other programs. Like, I'm going to fix what you have going on here first, and then we can talk about, hey, what do we want to do next to add more to the top of the funnel?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like let's call it $200,000 that we add to people's businesses, like, is all of that profit? No, there's some costs that go into it, but honestly, like most of it, 70-75% is probably profit because most people aren't spending much more money because it's just like going to fix a conversion from lead to net lead or net lead to appointment or whatever it might be. Increasing your deal size is like a huge one that we work with a lot of people on because, doing $10,000 deals is not as fun as doing $30,000 deals at the end of the day. Who wouldn't rather do that? And so all these things really kind of come in and just like our small tweaks, but it's really like taking most people's businesses from like a 6 out of 10 to like that 9 out of 10 or that 10 out of 10 on the execution front, and then backfilling with good talent. And that's kind of the recipe. It's really quite simple. It's not crazy complicated, but because to me, like the way I look at scale, and I think I heard Hermosi say this, but the way that I describe it is like having other people do the things you used to do all by yourself, but just as good as you used to do them alone, but just having other people do it. And so if you can just do that, then you're going to just be able to scale and grow your leverage over time. So that's essentially what you're doing. It's like get a mastered process, copy and paste it, and then backfill people in at the end of the day. And then obviously become a better leader, because if you're a bad leader, it doesn't matter how good the people are on your team, they're going to leave you.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of going off that, I heard somebody say this week was, you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You need those right pieces to turn this into a business. It's just understanding, hey, who do we need to bring on to, get you there? Yeah.
So what's like, okay, let's do this. Do you have an example of a common problem, or sorry, not a common problem, but of a situation where you help someone really increase the efficiency in their business through like implementing one of like a new process or a new system? Like walk me through kind of like what their business was before, what their business was after, and like kind of what we did to help them grow that position, that part of their business.
Yeah, there's definitely a few, and I know I kind of mentioned this earlier, but for quite a few of my people, the biggest hire was the LM. So we had Carlos, he's in Houston, one of my good friends now. He was struggling. He was that solopreneur doing everything with the sales process. He was, figuring out the marketing, managing the cold callers, doing the follow up, doing the sales, doing the dispo, doing the TC. So he was doing everything, which is where a lot of people are. But as soon as and he kind of struggled with that leadership piece too, and he's starting to kind of got a lot better with it recently. But
Well, he's young too. He's like what, like 22 or 21 or something like that.
Yeah, he's a young guy. He's killing it. But I'm like, hey, you need to bring on an LM. He's like, I don't think I'm ready for an LM. Like, I'm not sure if this makes sense. And I'm like, dude, just do it. And there's ways you could do it. You can go hire a VA do it, which is okay. Overseas people will work, but not my favorite. But I like to tell people, all right, let's leverage kind of your network. Who do you have you could bring on? Go to those local meetups, try to find that other young gun that might come on and work on for you for commission only, if possible, right? For him, it made sense, get a commission person. So he posted on the socials, found somebody, brought them on commission only. And then next thing you know, the next week he was going on a bunch of appointments and getting contracts. So I've done that with a few other people as well. And again, every time people are a little bit hesitant to say, I don't think I'm ready for this person. I don't know if I have the overhead to support this. And I'm like, I promise you do. Just go out there and do it. And, you're going to see the results. And every time people have done that, they've seen a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good point, because you can bring on someone who basically just like wants to learn the game or get into it or whatever. Like maybe they are doing a corporate thing and they're like on the side, like, yeah, I'll do this commission only. How do you like, is that the kind of situation you've seen for a lot of people, or is it more convincing or whatnot to like get someone on board? And then when you bring someone commission only on board, like it's kind of like up to them if they actually do anything.
Yep.
Because if they don't do anything, it's not going to help you. So how do you like set expectations and, actually not only just find someone, but bring them on board and have them produce results commission only?
Yep. That's the big thing, is having a detailed onboarding process. Because the more detailed you are, having your SOPs documented, the quicker you're going to be able to get that person up to speed and producing for you. Because ultimately, not every hire is going to work out. You're going to have to go through a few people to get to that person, right? That's just the name of the game. And especially with commission only, though, like roles, people can be loyal to you. Maybe they're a friend you're bringing on, but ultimately, loyalty doesn't really matter if you're not making them any money. They have mouths to feed, they have rents to pay, they have car bills, all that stuff. So loyalty, kind of goes out the window. Like, you do have to get them producing. So the quicker that you can get them onboarded and up to speed and producing, the more likely you're going to be able to retain them. Because if you're bringing on somebody commission and your processes are crap and they're not figuring anything out, and next thing you know, they're 90, 120 days and haven't got paid, they're going to walk, right? So somehow you are going to have to get them up to speed very quickly with your SOPs and onboarding docs so that you can get them paid so that they do stick around.
Yeah, for sure. So somehow you're going to have to get them up to speed on an onboarding. What kind of things on our onboarding do you like want to do? Like, what kind of expectations are you setting?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Expectations as far as like the day-to-day stuff. Like, what am I expecting as far as calls, time worked, output produced? Obviously training, you need to be training them daily, which is why I like to have that daily huddle of, one, doing the KPI check to hold them accountable to kind of what they said they would do, but two, doing those role plays, call reviews, sales training, so they are getting better. Because again, people also want that. They want to improve on their skills. A lot of people, especially in this industry, aren't taking jobs just to be stagnant, right? Everyone's here trying to grow and be better. So giving them the skills, and then obviously, hopefully you can offer them that opportunity of, hey, I'm going to bring you on as an LM to set me appointments, but that's not my end goal for you. I would love to get you over to acquisitions, but first I need to see if you can get this piece. After that, I'll start training you on that piece. So showing them that, hey, there is growth in this company. You can make as much money as you put into it. It's really just going to come down to you and your skills and if you want it.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, I'm going to just pull up the onboarding, like for a lead manager, just to show it.
Perfect.
Basically, just to walk through kind of what it is you want to take them through the tools they need, how to do the basic things to communicate with the team, where's some training stuff, getting them access to the systems that you use, like the CRMs, and getting them basically paid essentially. So getting their payment info. Also, you can collect their W-9 at this point too if you're getting 1099 people or whatever you're going to do. Braden said, is like setting super clear expectations for like what the work actually looks like. So like, for example, a lead manager, what we do is, 80 calls if there's no appointment, or they need to get 2 appointments a day, 10 a week. And that's like what they need to do as their expectation. And then we have like an onboarding expectation for like the first 30 days, the first 60 days, the first 90 days. So they know exactly where they should be. So, then like when, Braden's talking about like, okay, how do you know if someone's like failing or doing good? Well, it's pretty easy. Someone's failing if they're not getting 2 appointments a day, or not hitting their call goal, or in the first, 60 days, they don't get, at least 1 more contract signed. And then in 90 days, they're not getting 3 a month signed as a lead manager. Like, that's how you very clearly black and white say, is this person doing good? Yes or no? If they're not doing good, then great. You need to find someone else, or you need to, get better as a leader so you can train them up better. And then kind of just like walk them through the training. So like ours, I like a lot the way it's set up, but basically we take them through like training them script, objections, what's a good appointment, because you got to know what the goal is, and then how to disqualify and like the process after that. It's because we want to, for a lead manager, for anyone who's doing sales, I want them to make calls like as soon as possible. So if they're basically in the system like day 1, ideally they can make calls at the latest day 2, because that's the only way you're going to learn is by getting on the phones. So then we have like each training document on here going through each piece, and it's all kind of linked together. But that's when Braden says a detailed onboarding, that's like kind of like what he means, and it's something that we just kind of give to our clients and let them copy and paste. So
yep. The big thing with that too, the KPIs, I always like to tell people, you really have to understand kind of what your employee's goal is and what they want, as far as like financially and growth too, so that you can kind of map out their KPIs to that. Someone wants to make 10K a month. All right, we're going to have to do 2 contracts at 50 as a quick example. It's like, okay, what's it going to take for us to get there? How many appointments are they going to have to schedule? How many offers are they going to have to get out? That way, once they do fail, because it will happen, it's no one's perfect. But if we start seeing those red days stack up, then it's having that conversation. Hey, in order to get to your goal of, whatever your financial goal is, this is what we need to be doing day in, day out. And now I've seen a couple red days from you, what do you need help from? Do you need help from me to get you back on track? There's something going on in your personal life, and having that open-ended conversation with them.
Yeah. And I think that's like, at the end of the day, dude, like the people who work for you and work on your team are just like people, and everyone just emotional connection. And if you can give that for people and like make them feel like you care and that you understand their situation, like what they're going through, and that they feel like you're there to help them. And this can't be like something that's fake. It has to be like true and genuine. So if you're not that type of person, you have to become that type of person if you want to like lead a team. Otherwise, maybe you're better off to just be a solopreneur, or, maybe probably not work for someone else if you're listening to this, but that is the true reality of it. It's like, if you want to lead people, you have to actually care. And if you don't actually care, then it's very obvious, and people will not stick around. No matter how much you pay them, because it's a toxic work environment. So,
that's a very good point.
Super important piece right there. Okay, what do you feel like is another example? Do you have another example of like, maybe lead managers or other examples of people like doing things that have been really impactful for their businesses?
Yeah. So a real recent one, just kind of going back to the team and accountability, and usually I'd say that's for the LM and AMs too. But one that comes top of mind that I've been working with is one of my clients, Jericho, where his cold callers just weren't producing enough. We listened to the calls. They were fine, but they were missing some key points in their script. So I'm like, all right, on our weekly call, I talked to him. I'm like, all right, your goal for this week, go listen to your calls. Figure out, he had one performer. One was doing way better than everybody else. I'm like, go listen to their calls, see what they are doing, and then go train the rest of the team on that. So we listened to that. He talked to that rep, figured out what they were doing differently. And then he went and trained his team on that piece. And next thing you know, it was boom, his leads doubled from his cold call team because he trained them properly. Because yes, you might be able to find that person that's going to come in that's trained, but if you're not continuing training, people are going to fall off your process. And the whole point of having a process and having that process documented is it's because it's your money-making process. Like, this is how you've made money in the past. This is how you're going to make money in the future. We need our team to stay on that. So if we're not continually training our people and holding them accountable to getting better, then it's not going to work out.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like great, like super great people, super advanced people do the basic fundamental things like perfectly every time. And like the way I used to describe it for like baseball was like, anytime a ground ball was hit to you, because I played second base, anytime a ground ball was hit to me, I would make the play. And then occasionally when there was like a diving play or like a really tough play, it's like because, I was an advanced player or a good player, I would make those plays most of the time. And so like, because you never mess up on the easy ones and a lot of times you make the hard ones, like that's ultimately like what makes you great. So you just have to do the fundamentals perfectly. Like that's a non-negotiable. So I actually think like, even just working with people and like seeing their sales calls or whatever, it's like people know, like the business owner, like you guys know like what to do. It's like your standard is too low for like how much deviation from like what actually works is like happening, or the quality at which the process is being followed. So maybe if someone's saying the words, they're saying like, hey, are you interested in selling your property at 123 Main Street or something like that? But they're just saying it like a robot and not using proper tonality. It's like, that's like an example of doing it like 6 out of 10. It's like to do it 9 out of 10 quality is they need to be using the proper pacing, proper tonality, whatever it might be in the process. And that's going to like get you 2, 3, 4, 5 times better results just by making one simple tweak. Like that sounds like a menial small tweak, but at the end of the day, like that might double your business just by tweaking one thing like that. That's that small. So,
yep. That happens with a lot of people's sales team. They bring on somebody, they train them. All right, they're producing. They kind of just turn a blind eye. They're producing. I don't have to worry about them anymore. But in reality, they're going to slowly go off their process, slowly make up their own things, which maybe does work better, but a lot of times it doesn't. And now you're like wondering, why aren't we getting contracts? This person produces for me, but we're not getting contracts right now. It's like, well, let's go listen to those calls, and I bet you they're not following the process you put in place because you're not, holding them accountable to that, and also just continue training them to get better.
Yep. I mean, everyone, no matter how good you are, needs accountability and needs like to be checked, because sometimes you're just like have other things going on in your life, and you have to put some of the focus that was here once like over here, and then like this drops and then this increases, whether that's like maybe you go from like, okay, I got a new job, I got to do like really, really good here and focus hard. And then now they like have made money, they've established themselves that they're good, but then they stopped working out. So now they need to like spend more time working out, and then their performance at work drops, or maybe their girlfriend, wife, whatever, husband gets mad at them. So they have to go and fix that. And then like now they're pulling away from work, and all of these, like you only have so much focus, attention, and energy as a person. And like if it moves away from work, you as a leader have to like pull it back. And then also to that point is like knowing your team's income goals, knowing how their KPIs relate to that, knowing how to like tie all that back together. Cause like, hey, if you don't like perform at work, especially if you're commission only, like you're not going to be able to, make the extra couple grand a month you want to make so that you can go on that vacation, so you can buy either the house, buy a car, whatever it is. And like, it's very important for people, right? It's like, I think like it sucks that money is like, cause like the people are like, money doesn't buy happiness, but I think money does like solve lots of problems. Like if you don't have a money problem, you have a lot less problems generally.
Yep.
And so like people have to be reminded of that. And so you have to help your team get there. So.
And one other thing that I've seen, just kind of switching topics here with people, is I'm going to say it's like becoming an expert in your area. I've seen people try to go nationwide, or again, kind of opening up different markets, and because they think their market is too competitive, when every market is competitive for the most part if you're in a major metropolitan area. So really becoming an expert in your area, double downing on what's working. I was working with one of my clients too, who's doing some PPC stuff, but he was doing it nationwide. So he's sitting there banging his head against the wall trying to work a 5K deal in Oklahoma, when actually he should be doubling down on his market of Florida and producing 25K a deal. So he turned off the nationwide stuff, is doubling down on Florida, and now his mental is he's in a much better spot mentally, and he's also going to be making more money from that. And kind of to two-piece that is becoming an expert in your marketing too. A lot of people, they're on YouTube, they're watching all these videos saying, hey, this person's doing this, this person's doing this, this person's doing this, rather than becoming an expert in one marketing channel. Whatever that is. Where a lot of business owners get caught is when they keep switching marketing providers, marketing companies, different marketing channels without becoming an expert in it. Because I could point to a client in our community that's doing everything. really good. Like I know people that are really good at cold calling. I know people that are still texting having results. I know people who are doing direct mail. I know people are doing PPL. So everything works. But where people get in trouble is when they switch too frequently and they're not really dialed in on, becoming an expert at that channel.
Yeah, literally everything works. And that's like the bottom line. Like
Yeah.
People are crushing with direct mail. People are crushing with YouTube. People are crushing with PPL, cold calling. What else is there? PPC, all the different Facebook, TikTok, and the people are doing nationwide. People are doing it in one market. People are going in person for appointments. People are doing flips. People are doing wholesales. People are wholesaling. People are doing the Pace Murray said this once. Is that the hardest part about real estate is there's too many options. And he's right. He's like, but if you have one that you're really good at and the math makes sense, then it's like taking the principle like Hormozi talks about. It's like more, better, new. It's like do more until it doesn't work anymore. Once you've reached diminishing returns, do it better. So it's like let's say you're cold calling, you're making $30K a month. Just like I was talking to this guy the other day, one of the guys in the group, and he was like, "Oh, should I add a new market?" He's in Nashville. I was like, "Here's how I think about that." I was like, "Have you tried you have 3 cold callers? Have you tried just getting 4 or 5 or 6 or 5 or 6 and seeing how that goes with your business?" And he's like, "No." I was like, "Okay, well, just start there, see what happens. If you don't get more appointments or your cost per appointment just goes way up and it doesn't make sense anymore." Because you can do the math. Let's say it takes you 10 appointments to get a deal. The most you're willing to pay is $5K for a deal. Well, if I'm only willing to pay $5K for a deal and it takes me 10 appointments to get a deal, then I'm only willing to pay $500 for an appointment. So if that number goes above $500 for an appointment, hey, I need to stop doing more and I need to transition to doing better. And so better might look like getting more refined with my data of knowing what works. So reviewing my deals each month to see what has worked in the past. How do I only focus on that data to get more leads like that? It could look like a million different things, but once you focus on getting better, then now you can add 2, 3, 4 more cold callers and still be under $500 an appointment like you need to be. And you'll grow your business double. And that's just from releasing a constraint in your business that makes you better so that you can do more. And then once you've done that a ton, there's every time you try to do more and then you try to do better, it doesn't improve, then you can do new. Then you can go into a new market. That's a way to do it. Other people, I have clients who actually just do one channel. They have one sales process and they have one exit strategy, but they do tons of different markets. So their more is doing more markets and their better is getting better at sales. So it's different for everyone's model and it all can work. It's just you have to pick one thing of how you've made money in the past and just keep doing that. There's a million ways to do it.
So everything's a little bit different. If you're cold calling or texting, it's really important to be good on your follow-up because those take a while to convert. If you're doing your inbound stuff, you have to be really good with speed to lead. So it's 2 different processes, and a lot of people aren't set up for that or overlook that. Kind of one thing to backtrack for a second, which you mentioned is, targeting your areas of focus. So one task that we've been kind of doing with some of our clients is what I like to call a reverse buy box. Writing down every deal that you have done in the past. Look at your areas, which areas were you most successful? Did you do the most deals? And which areas did you make the most money? Because a lot of times people will think, oh, this is my area. I really like this area. But ultimately, when you go and look at where you're doing deals, it's different. And kind of even off the size too. A lot of people, they're marketing the land, they're marketing mobile homes, they're doing 2 1s, they're doing 3 2+s. Where again, looking at that data and saying, hey, this is what our buy box is. Let's double down on that marketing.
Yeah. I'll give a good example of this. This is when we were this is probably the first time I ever realized this. I was probably 21 and we had done 2 creative finance deals. And it's when Pace Morby was really coming out with sub 2 and everything. And we're man, we love this. Creative finance is the greatest thing of all time. It's so cool. And then we looked at the numbers. I was like, man, we're converting 1 in 150 appointments to creative finance. It's we suck. And then I was we're just wasting so much time. Maybe we should just stop doing this. So we were we just made a decision to stop doing it. And as soon as we stopped doing that, it allowed us to grow from, I think we were stuck at $80K a month or something like that. It allowed us to grow from there to 150,000 without doing anything different. Just we had more capacity in our sales team. One small tweak and you just grow for no real, it doesn't seem like there's real any reason besides you're just increasing your team's dollar per hour. At the end of the day, that's all you're doing.
Yeah, I literally told the client that yesterday, that exact example where you was having all these offers. You give them a cash offer, you give them the MLS Novation offer, and then you pivot to a creative offer. And I'm yes, that could work, but ultimately,
sounds great. It sounds great in practice.
But let's double down on doing the cash. If they say no, go into the Novation, because especially with sales teams, people are going to take that path with least resistance. And it's so much easier to pitch a sub 2 deal to somebody rather than saying, hey, I'll buy your property for 60 cents on the dollar, right? But ultimately, that's where we're going to make our money, is having those tough conversations, staying in those areas of uncomfortability with those sellers rather than pivoting to something comfortable. So I literally told a client that example like yesterday.
Yeah, it's such an obvious one when you look back on it, but in the moment, it's like so unclear like what decision to make, which I think is why it's so helpful to have someone who's there to like, hey, like I noticed this. Like, what do you think? Oh yeah, that's real. You should definitely just not do that. You know, it's like boom, all of the decision fatigue, all the time you spent thinking about it, gone, and then you just are able to go into action. So you can't put a price tag on that. So cool, Braden. I think this is super solid, man. I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of value from this. What would you say is like one thing if you're just talking to someone who's like, doing, between 20 and 50K a month, trying to like grow their business? Like, what would you say is like the biggest thing that they should go and like look at and just do like in general from right now, from today?
Yeah. I guess the one thing I would say is KPIs, because obviously that's going to help us know what we need to work on. So really tracking your numbers, seeing what our conversions look like from a lead to net lead to appointment to offer, contract close. Once you know those numbers, we'll be able to make decisions off of that on what we need to do. Do we need to fix our follow-up process? Is there something wrong with our CRM statuses, our reporting there? Or is it something wrong with our offer conversion? Is it something with our sales process, our pitch, building rapport? So ultimately, to me, it's going to be coming down to knowing your numbers so that you can make educated decisions and actually know what to work on.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. All right, dude, I love it. And guys, we will talk to you guys later. Peace.